All right, so it's Saturday here in 19th of October, and I got what's the matter you? You you cool with going live, bro?
Yeah.
All right. So this week has been kind of interesting. Uh we had a big giant chemical fire in Georgia. We had a gigantic fire from a traffic accident. I believe that was in California somewhere. You know, who knows what else is happening? What's up, Jeff? Jeff hates pigs. Is
Hey,
here. What's up, bro?
whatever else you know about, I'm letting you give me the news this week. You're the newscaster.
Well, yeah, I don't know about that, but I'm just running my mouth. That's what I do.
I'm just trying to force you into some role.
Uh, I watched. Yeah, I got you. So I watched this video. I didn't subscribe to the guy or nothing, but he was talking about how the Secretary of Defense issued this policy statement, and it reads like it's law. It's 3755.12 subsection A, blah blah. You know how they
They love to
love
do
to
that.
yeah, they love to do that shit because they think it makes them seem really important. But the head of the State Department, he sets policy for the armed forces under the advisement of the Congress and the Senate and the executive branch, the president, right? They set policy for the armed forces, and what this new policy says is that uh, if the police need the help of the army has permission to go ahead and use lethal action against the citizenry.
Right.
Okay.
Okay,
Uh,
that's not the first time that's happened, though. Keep in mind.
no, no,
That
no.
was,
It's been happening since Columbus, landed and he murdered the
right,
Indians.
right. But more in modern context, it's happened during Katrina. It happened during Clinton, and I think, and I can't even remember now. I've got them mixed up, but there's several other ones, and then also Eisenhower.
Yeah, Eisenhower. Well, him and Patton led the army against the bonus marchers after World War I was over to run them out of D.C. That's where
Mm.
Eisenhower and Patton, and I'm not sure if Bradley was involved in that, but he probably was. All them guys are bought and paid for. People look at Eisenhower like he was some kind of a good guy, but
Well, he
yeah,
did try to give us that warning, but it didn't go very far.
yeah, it was too late at that point.
That's
Uh,
right. He's the one that was signing this stuff into law.
yeah, if it wasn't already too late, he would have never been allowed to give that speech. Jeff Hates Pig says, "Isn't there a law against that?" Yeah, yeah, there is. It's called the Constitution of the
Posse
United States.
comitatus.
Well, posse comitatus is about quartering troops.
Oh, okay. I
Um,
thought it. I thought it said that no troops can operate on American soil.
let's take a look at posse comitatus
Yes.
and see what it says. Uh, the Posse Comitatus Act is a United States federal law, 18 USC 1385, original at 20 Statute 152, signed on June 18th, 1878, by President Rutherford B. Hayes, that limits the power of the federal government in the use of federal military personnel to enforce domestic policies within the United States. Okay, so this is the overview that Google gives me. It's kind of
Right.
it's polished and it's nonsense because the government does not set uh, domestic policies for the citizenry. They're not allowed to do that. They make policies that apply to government employees only, not to we the people. We the people don't answer to the fucking president of the United States. We don't answer to the governor. We don't answer to the mayor. That's that's an opposite misinterpretation of the relationship. The relationship is they listen to us. They do what we say. But they've got it all wrong for the longest time, and they just continue to do it.
Well, a lot of people argue that's why that we've been turned into corporate, so that we fall into policy, that we've been turned into like corporate possessions or corporate workers or whatever they say.
Well, they can think whatever they want. Believing that we're just property of the state is a religious belief. It's no basis in fact, because the fact of the matter is the Supremacy Clause and the Bill of Rights.
That's true. Yeah.
These
they can't be convinced otherwise, though.
Well, yeah, no, that's why I butt heads with people like BZ Watchdog and Brick Jonesy, because they want to argue this kind of shit, that we're actually, and even Dave was talking about that. Well, we're owned. No, we're not. I'm not owned. Anybody who can prove that they own me by doing something, better pack a lunch. Yeah, they better pack a lunch. Right. And they better have some copy ready for the want ad section in the newspaper or on monster.com or whatever, because they're going to be short some hands after they try to prove that to me. They're going to be short some hands. Second Amendment.
Absolutely.
Second Amendment, Castle Doctrine. I'm sovereign over myself and my possessions. And anybody who tries to prove otherwise, they're
you guys are right, though. It does boil down to an argument over the Supremacy Clause and their unwillingness to acknowledge what it clearly means.
Yeah, well, they're living in a fantasy world. We're not the ones who are fantasizing that we're free. We are free. We are free. We just have to prove it.
All I've been asking, I don't know. I'm sure Jeff Hates Pigs has seen me ranting in the chat and whatnot, but all I keep saying is, hey, let's not talk about case law without mentioning that this is blatant judicial overreach. If you're going to call what these judges are creating law, well, then by default, by definition, that's legislating from the bench, is it not?
Yeah, and they're not allowed to do that.
Yeah, and that's clear. They'll admit that they're not allowed to legislate from the bench, but they won't then turn around and admit that that's what case law is.
Well, that's what they think it is. It's not what it is. What it is it's just a ruling, an opinion, or a decision. It's not law. Judges don't make law. They make decisions based on law.
Even today, the Library of Congress outlines the powers of the judiciary as to make make determinations of the applications of law in individual cases. Even today, that's what it says.
That's right. There's no blanket. These court decisions that they talk about in court are they're non sequiturs, man. They don't matter. They don't apply. People say, well, Chavez versus San Antonio, city of San Antonio, or state of California, or whatever, Sanchez versus South Dakota. That's a decision in that case. It has no bearing on anything else. Precedent doesn't mean shit. When people talk about precedent, what they're saying is a decision changes law, and that is not how it works. The legislative branch are the only ones that can make or change laws, not the judicial. Judicial branch, I've already said it a million times, they make opinions, rulings, and decisions in individual cases. They don't set precedent. Precedent is another one of these words. It's like these pigs saying they can determine probable cause. No, probable cause is determined by a judge who reads a statement of injury and damages sworn under oath by a complainant. And then he determines probable cause, and if he determines that there is probable cause, he writes a warrant.
That's right.
Persons,
all
places.
Of this tyranny, tons of this tyranny I don't know if all of it, but tons of this tyranny derives from this case law bullshit. Whether you're talking about qualified immunity, whether you're talking about judicial and prosecutorial immunity, or even things like doctrines, like the plain view doctrine. Well, because a warrant has to be so specific, and they have to ignore anything that they see that's not specified on the warrant, that pretty much rules out the idea that plain view doctrine is legitimate.
Right, because if plain view doctrine, all that, listen, doctrine is just another word for belief. That's all it is. It's
Right.
it's belief. It's religious belief. Doctrine is that word is mostly applied to religions, and we know, the trouble that religions have caused us since, you know,
It's funny how blatant they are. It's just like they call the war on drugs a war on, they call it a war, which is stupid because if you're conducting war on the people, as Kennedy said, that's treason.
it's treason. That means, and when when someone offers aid to the enemy, all you bootlickers pay attention. When you offer comfort or aid to the enemy during wartime, you are a traitor. You're not entitled to any 14th Amendment rights. If you're a traitor on the face of your actions, then you're not entitled to,
Absolutely.
yeah, there's no due process for you anymore. You are arrested, and then there's an immediate execution of sentence. There's no stay, there's no appeal, there's no charges, there's no there's no adjudication of that. That's an instant thing.
Yeah.
You don't get a fucking trial. You don't get legal representation. You don't get a say. You don't get bond. You don't get bail. You don't even get a cell. What you get is whatever the preferred method is
A bullet or a rope.
to end you, because you don't deserve to live anymore. You don't
A
deserve
bullet,
to
or if
live.
those are in short supply at the time, a rope.
Well, whatever's popular at the moment, but rope is cheap, and a short stool, because I believe that traitors should get they should get strung up. They don't get a long drop and a sudden stop. They don't get that luxury. That's a luxury. That is mercy right there. I
Sure.
want them. I want them to think about it while their
Right.
vision, yeah, while their vision is going grainy, and they feel
Absolutely.
their blood no longer traveling to where it
They're
needs
an
to
odd
go.
kind of traitor, though, in a sense, because they're not working for a foreign nation. I guess they're just trying to overthrow with a different ideology.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Traitors offer comfort and support to the enemy during a time of war. And if the government has declared war on us, then the government in its entirety is treason. That means all of them. All
Well,
of
and the
them.
more that we lit all these little things, and they're not actually little, but anything that we allow to slip because of convenience or because we think it makes us safer, or it would be too difficult to suddenly legalize everything, cause chaos or whatever. Well, yeah, it probably would cause some serious problems for a little while, but they don't even come close to equating to the problems that we're having because we've allowed the government to go criminal.
That's right. They've gone rogue, and they're all traitors, man. Okay, maybe not all of them, but in my mind, if it was up to me, we would wash the blackboard.
Right. Nobody in positions of power is speaking against, the international bankers and printing money. Nobody's speaking out against the prison industrial complex or the war on drugs. Nothing important. All they want us to fight over whether a person with a penis is a woman or a man.
Right. When we already inherently as creatures understand that there's only male and female. There is nothing else. There may be what we would call a neuter, okay? Somebody that's born without any sex, or somebody who is born indeterminate. But that's
It's rare.
that's a physicality.
Yeah.
That's not something that we make up in our minds, but that you're right, man. They've got And we got these punks in Congress who say, well, these people that are chanting death to America, they're traitors. And yeah, not like you are. They're not traitors because they have a First Amendment right.
In most cases, they're not even chanting that in the first place. It's something else that they want justice for, and that's just how they're characterized.
Right. Well, I've not heard anybody on, during any of these free Palestine demonstrations saying death to America or even death to Israel. I've not heard them say any of that. Maybe they are, and I just wasn't listening properly. But look, the fact is, and this is hard for people to hear. The majority of Israelis don't want anything to do with the Palestinian problem. They just want a solution that keeps those people that live in Palestine happy and that keeps Israel secure. They don't
But they're
want this.
wealthy. They're wealthy. Are not going to allow that because they're making so much money off of this conflict.
That's right. Yeah.
And when the people are all unalive, they can go and take their land.
Right. I mean, they're taking their land anyway with the settlements. Right. Palestine is the world's second largest open air prison.
Right.
It literally. Yeah. Right. We are the world's number one open air prison. We are prisoners that are allowed to roam the prison yard.
I would agree with that, even over places like Russia, where it's a different kind of open air prison there, but it's not. Yeah.
It's amazing to me that Russia is less repressive against its people than America is, and people around the world are starting to see that because all these police brutality and judicial overreach videos are getting out, and the rest of the people in the world are going, "Damn, man! The American people don't really have it as good as their press says they do."
Right. Right.
And I comment on these British pig, bad behavior videos, and that's really all it is. It's just bad behavior. They threaten people, but they don't actually beat the shit right out of them. You know what I mean? Like they're
generally
rude.
No. That's more just snottiness.
Yeah, they're snotty and they're rude and they'll arrest people, but they don't beat their asses up. I've not seen any videos of the British police beating anyone up. Have you?
I don't think so. I'm racking my brain. I don't think so.
Right. So my comment always is, you limeys have no idea how good you got it over there because here.
Thinking about it, I can think of a few instances where people actually stepped in to keep that from happening. Like bystanders.
Yeah, over there.
Yeah.
Right. Because they completely mistrust the police over there, and
or maybe they just have a better sense of right and wrong. But either way,
well, their country is a lot less. It's not as densely populated as the United States is, so we're going to have a lot more problems than they do.
No, they're more densely populated.
Well, they're in a smaller area, but we have way bigger population than them. Way bigger.
Oh yeah.
We have a lot more prisoners running around out in the air than they do.
Oh, yeah. But we have two different types of people that are easily manipulated into going at each other's throats.
Right. Republicans and Democrats.
Yeah.
Yeah. That are just willing to fight and fight and fight over shit that
this
doesn't
is exactly
matter.
What it boils down to is what they're doing is when somebody chooses the side with the Republicans or the Democrats, they're ignoring if you choose to support Camel Toe or you choose to support the Orange Man, you are supporting something horrific that you normally would say no to in a heartbeat. But because you're more frightened of the other side, you're willing to go ahead and latch on to this candidate, sign your name to them, and give them your support. And by doing so, everybody in the whole country, or at least all the people who get into that fight, their virtue is completely destroyed. And then when their candidate, whichever one gets into office, the media is going to focus on everything that they do and inflate everything. Whatever the opposite side is going to inflate everything, and the mainstream side that's with them is going to ignore everything bad that they do. And so it just continues on from there. So now you've got a situation where no matter who gets in office, pretty much everybody is ignoring or at least half the population is willing to completely ignore and deny all this bad shit that they do. All these Trump supporters, for example, they have no idea that he was dropping 40 bombs on average a day on innocent people during his presidency, more than that murderous whatever Obama even dropped. And it's all just so that we can get rid of our supplies and replenish it and put money back in the military industrial complex, as well as further some of our corporate interests. But regardless, they just, and you tell them about this and you try to point them to bring the receipts to them, and they just don't want to look.
Yeah, they don't want to hear it because, Cheeto man, he's the man. He's for the people. He's not. Listen, Trump and his entire family couldn't be further removed from your average American than a human being is from a common garden slug.
Amen. He has nothing but contempt for most of us.
Yeah, he hates. Listen, both of those people that
both
are running,
of them, yeah,
they hate America. They hate the American people. They hate the fact that we have rights, and they hate the fact that if we could just throw off these chains of Republican and Democrat and hold hands and tell them no,
we demand something better. We demand a lot more.
Yeah, they would have to stop. They would have to stop.
Even if 10 million people were to do that and not vote, that would probably shake the foundations of everything.
Well, the problem and the solution is the fact that we don't hold them accountable by filing charges and writing criminal complaints and filing lawsuits and bringing these people back to heel, where they, like the bad dogs that they are. These people are wild fucking apes that are running this country. They're wild apes.
The crimes
man.
that they're committing are so horrifically bad, whereas the same people who refuse to hold them accountable, they'll throw any young black kid in prison for 25 to life for his third strike stealing a candy bar. And they think that's right. They're all about it. Law and order. But, they have no, they don't care if it's not just the president either. It's the congressman. And there's an interesting parallel there as well. Whereas when you have this culture of corruption that everybody's accepting, well, then it trickles down to the police, to the post office, to every other. And so part of the tyranny and the corruption that we're seeing comes from the fact that we accept our politicians to act in the way that they do. The worst turds rise to the top of the Senate and the Congress. Only the people who are the most corrupt get into our Speaker of the House, and because they and Senate Majority Leader, because everybody has stuff on them and they know that this person's corrupt and they're not going to go after them and for whatever their little side hustles and shticks are. And that's the only type of people that they're going to support for those positions. If you look, it's always the most corrupt mother effers that get in those top positions, and it's the same thing with the police. They can't afford to allow anything but the worst turds to rise to the top because there's so many criminals in the organization. They can't have anybody who they don't have dirt on and who they don't see have proof will toe the thin blue line and not turn on them.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, man. We're back to socialists. And what's the first requirement for becoming part of that club? You have to be willing to commit crimes and conspire with your fellow socialists to commit more crimes, to help them get away with it. It's all based on criminal action by government employees, and that's how they stay in charge. They just, like Kennedy always says, they just can't stop committing more and more and more crimes to cover up the other crimes that they've committed. Just like there was this kid, this is years ago, there was this kid and his buddy, and they burglarized a home or something, and they were running from the cops. This was in Cincinnati, I believe, and the cops shot the one kid. They were running away, okay? They were running away from the cops, and because the cops couldn't catch them, probably, they shot and killed one of the kids, and then they charged the other kid for that kid's murder.
Oh, wow. I vaguely remember that.
How insane is that we killed your friend, so now we're going to charge you with his murder.
It's
You're
just as
guilty.
insane as when they barge in your house, totally violating the Fourth Amendment, and then if you accidentally trip on the edge of the couch or whatever and put your hand on one of them, you're going away for assaulting a police officer for.
Yeah, well, it's battery, but they like to call it assault.
In Oregon, it's assault, but yeah.
Yeah, assault is when you like bluff charge somebody. You don't even have to touch them. That's assault. All you have to do is make a move towards them in an aggressive manner. You don't even have to touch them. That's technically assault. It becomes assault and battery when you bluff charge them and then you grab them or you touch them. You don't even have to hit them. All you have to do is touch them, and it's battery. It's battery. But that applies to anybody that bluff charges or touches anybody else. But we all know that the cops are never gonna arrest somebody for assault just because they bluff charge another citizen. One citizen bluff charges another citizen or even tears his ass up. There's no guarantee they're going to arrest the guy that did it because they do what they want.
One's the bootlicker.
Right, yeah. It depends on whether he's a socialist collaborator or not. If you're willing to support them in their socialist criminal agenda, then yeah, they're going to cut you loose. Just like that white guy who was causing trouble at Circle K, and then he pointed at Tyrone across the street.
I feel bad for that guy.
Dude, the black guy with cerebral palsy who's deaf, and the cops don't even try to approach him in any kind of a reasonable way, which is what they're supposed to do, and try to communicate with the guy. The first pig jumps out and just attacks the guy.
Chili was playing that today and talking about showing the reaction of the police. They always the only reactions they get are from ex-pigs.
What's
and
that?
They'll sit there and Chili was showing that today, that battery by the police, and then he was showing the reactions of the media and the people that they choose to get reactions from themselves. And the only people they ever get these reactions from or analysis from are ex-pigs. They went to some representative or something from the area that's also an ex-pig, and they'll even say out loud, "You can't understand unless you're a cop." Like, what is there to understand? It's on video, dude.
Right. There's nothing to understand. That guy, he had his phone in his hand, and he was texting or watching his girlfriend on FaceTime using sign language to talk to him. And he, out of his peripheral vision, he saw this cop coming. He wasn't even paying attention. When he reacted to that cop pulling up in his truck, he took this big lunge to the right, away from the cop, away from the threat. Right. He didn't want to get in that cop's way. He didn't want to get in the way of that cop, and then the cop just blatantly attacked him.
Yeah, the poor guy I don't think even until the cop ran into him, I don't think that he even understood the cop was coming for him because he had no reason.
Well, that's the case in most of these incidents. These pigs just go straight for the violence because that's all they understand. They're they got one tool in their toolbox, and it's a hammer. And guess what? All of us are nothing but nails. We're all nails. We're all the same to them. These socialists, we're in the way of them skating through their careers so they can get that exorbitant fucking pension. A lot of people say, well, these cops don't make enough money. The average cop makes like $75,000 a year.
And I'll tell you what, I would be all for cops making, I don't care, $250,000 a year if they were actually the peacekeepers they're supposed to be, the cream of the crop, rights protectors that they were supposed to be. And you wouldn't need nearly the numbers, obviously, that we have of police in this country. If you weren't arresting everybody every 2 seconds and whatnot, and revenue generating. But if that's how they were, and you had to pick the cream of the crop and people who had either gone to college or some kind of, better than that non indoctrination style training or whatever in the Constitution.
Right. Then, but see, people like that are not going to follow the direction of the socialists that are, in fact, just they're criminals who are trying to push us toward the communist system, who sit on city councils, county commissioners, mayors, governors. You know,
Yeah,
those people are all
that's why they pick somebody with a GED.
right. They want robots that are going to follow orders and not question the morality or even the legality of what they're doing.
Why
They
should they?
don't.
There's no consequences for them.
Right. Why should they be? Are okay. Perfect example. Back in the early to mid '90s, there was a gang from Gary, Indiana. We called them the GI Boys, and they came to Columbus, Ohio, and they were running most of the crack trade in the city. They were the majority of the crack dealers in the city, and they were huge problem. Okay, but all the violence and shit that was going on with that was between rival drug dealers. Okay, they kept down the bullshit in their little territories because they
Right.
knew that it was going to draw the attention of the police.
Absolutely, and they also want the support of the community
That's right.
to the, to the extent that they can get it.
Right, if somebody comes into their area and they're burglarizing houses and shit, guess what? Those drug dealers are going to make that person disappear
Absolutely, around here, that's how it is.
because they don't want that trouble. What do the
Yeah,
police do? They just do whatever. They just create mayhem everywhere they go.
exactly.
So,
They're not going to find anybody who burglarized your house. Never.
right, yeah, they're never going to.
Unless the person was so stupid that they left fingerprints all over and they're in the system or something like that. But otherwise, no.
Right, and they're not unless they have a bolo and they know for sure. But then again, how many times do we see these stupid these stupid criminals with badges and guns picking up somebody? Well, you fit the description. The black guy who was jogging and the cops, tried
Uh,
to arrest him and shit.
yeah.
Remember that one?
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
He's like, I'm just out jogging, man. I don't know what you're even talking about, dude. I jog here every morning. If you're paying, if the pigs were paying attention, they would have already known that he was a regular jogger up and down that part of the community. Because
Absolutely.
yeah, and there was a couple cases of that, where they just, it's just this black dude, and then there was another black guy he was working at, some Jersey Mike's or Firehouse Subs or something, and he went out back to take his cigarette break, and the pig comes up and draws a gun on him. You probably remember that one too. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. I'm
Oh,
having
yeah, yeah.
I'm on my break. I work right here, and then the dude comes from outside. What's going on? This guy works here, man. He's taking a cigarette break.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's just like these pigs have been
And they
so.
still didn't believe him.
Yeah, yeah. I think that dude still got arrested. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. I don't remember. It's been a while.
I know they still didn't believe him even when the other employees came out and told them.
Right. And then there's these cops are just so fucking stupid and lazy, and they're just, we'll just pick up the very first person. That's why I don't believe that 60% of the people that are in prison ever even committed a crime that got them thrown in there in the first place, because these cops are so stupid and they don't know how to do their jobs. They're stupid, lazy, and they're incompetent. They just pick up the first person and they attach this crime to them and they go, it's solved. Let the courts take care of them.
Oh shit! Though, have you seen that more recent case that the civil rights lawyer's been covering about the construction workers or the street workers? I mean,
Yeah, that's clear retaliation, man. Clear retaliation.
I mean,
Here's
these people they're being held with like $1 million bonds and shit, and charged with 5 and 6 felonies apiece, kidnapping and assault and battery and all this other stuff. When you already know what really happened. But
yeah, what really happened is this pig was drunk and he got caught up in his feels because he wanted to turn left and they told him no. And you can't tell a toddler with the mentality of a 3-year-old who has been told that he can do whatever he wants. You can't tell them anything. You can't tell them anything. Look, in Ohio, if you fuck with these construction workers at all, it's a felony. If they're working on the roads and you fuck with them at all.
I think it is where that happened too. That's probably one of the reasons why they worked so hard to make sure and cover it up, and then no charges are ever brought against this cop, because he's going to be, when you get out of your vehicle like that, in any circumstances, let alone to road workers, and come to approach somebody, that's a serious problem.
Well, it's assault. It's assault. When you approach somebody aggressively, that's assault. It's not
Well,
assault and battery.
there's a lot of extra tacked on when you actually go out of your way to stop your vehicle.
Yeah,
And
okay, it's aggravated.
yeah,
Yeah, it's aggravated or whatever. But that whole situation there, that'll all come out in the wash because it's getting way too much press. Those pigs are going to be in big trouble, man. The
I certainly hope
prosecutor,
so.
uh, you know, just like this deal with Tyrone, that was those cops were out of line. They committed crimes against Tyrone. They assaulted him and they battered him and they kidnapped him while armed with a weapon. That's a federal charge, man. That's a federal charge. Kidnapping is federal time.
Watch though, he'll probably get a big settlement, but they probably will either get fired and transfer to a different department or retire or something.
Yeah, they'll have to resign and they'll get to keep their certification because God forbid, that he just, that pig has to become an actual criminal instead
And
of being
where on earth in the law it says that if you retire or quit, that if you're under investigation for committing a crime, if you quit or retire from your job, that suddenly that investigation just goes away.
right. Where is that? What law is that? Is that the
Yeah.
same? Is that the same law that makes being suspicious a crime? You're under suspicion. Is that a misdemeanor or a felony? That's another thing that these auditors say. Well, is that a misdemeanor or a felony? More nonsense that comes out of these auditors' mouths. And I want to talk about Carolina Fort Worth for a minute. She's been posting a lot of videos about Kruger and about his affidavit and what a fucking liar he is. Well, we know he's a liar because he's a cop. And what have we learned about cops? They go through their physical fitness testing and then they immediately start teaching them how to lie. They're professional liars. That's the order that it goes in. They teach you. They make sure that you're physically fit enough to start being a cop. We know that after the fact, they all become fat, lazy, useless slobs because we see tons of these. They become one of two things. They become muscle-bound, brainless gorillas that are on steroids and probably doing coke or meth or drinking or whatever, or they become these big fat slobs who are carb raging around because that's all they have. They're just, they have high blood pressure and they just rage. We see that time and time again with these pigs. There's two types, really. There's the muscle-bound roid rage pigs, and then there's the big fat donut-filled cheeseburger sausage chewing drunks who beat their wives and all they can do is rage because they're so full of carbs they can't do anything but get angry and they have high blood pressure and they just go off. Both there's no other kind of pig. They're either fat and rage junkies, or they're muscle bound roid rage dope fiends. There's no other kind of cop. I mean,
There are a few little skinny beta. Where you're going? What the fuck could you ever do?
Well, that's okay, but man,
They're not many though.
We have already seen that if there's one bad cop in a department, all the rest of the cops are bad because they go along with it. Silence is consent. If you don't stand up, like the thing I said before, if you got 8 cops in an alley and 7 of those cops are beating up a dude who's in handcuffs, and the 8th cop is just standing there watching and he never says anything, he never does anything, then how many good cops do you have in that alley? 0.
0, exactly.
There's 0 good cops there. They're all a bunch of fucking pigs because they let that shit go on.
Absolutely. And it's not like they went to school for 8 years to become a cop. That wouldn't make it okay. But I'm just saying it's not that big of a deal. Your morality should definitely trump that, if anything.
Yeah. Well, but they never learn morality because they don't care. They don't have. If you're a moral person, has a minimal amount of intelligence. There's a lower level of intelligence that you have to be a moral person, and none of these pigs have that. Even the ones that are sneaky and get away with shit, just because you're clever doesn't mean that you're intelligent. It means that you're just, you're a conniving piece of shit. You don't have to be smart to be conniving and
Oh no,
think that you're clever.
not at all.
The older generation used to say clever by half, which means that
Right.
you're a fucking idiot is what it means. And
Yeah.
most of these pigs are clever by half, but that's okay because those are the kind of people that the judicial and the executives want in charge because they don't want you thinking. They want you following orders. Get out there and get those college students back in their dorms where they belong. Get them out of that demonstration. This is why, there were dead bodies at Kent State because we got these fucking idiots in uniforms.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
One quick question that I had that was related to their constant kind of addiction for getting ID. I know that it comes a lot from their wanting to take a piece of you and take control of you. However, I was wondering the other day if there also isn't some kind of a something that's come down the line because of what they're building there at the N Baba A, you know, yeah, the 3-letter word or the 3-letter whatever. They're building like a system where every time that your name comes up, anybody that's you give them your ID like that, then that's entered into the system where they then this AI system or whatever correlates you with everybody else who's been had ID'd in that area or whatever. You don't have to commit a crime.
Sure.
And yeah, so they're building this kind of system where this AI figures out who the likely associates are and who knows who and blah, 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 blah. It's totally unconstitutional. But I kind of wonder if there isn't a mandate coming down the line that tells them that's that extra motivation for them to get ID from everybody.
Sure, of course, because that's a way for them to get you in a database. And then later on, when a crime let's say, Joe Blow from Kokomo lives at 123 123rd Street in Kokomo, Indiana, and at 1400 127th Street there's a murder. And then
Right.
they go to Joe Blow's house because he's in the system. Somebody said that he had a gun, blah blah blah, but there was never a charge and he was never arrested. But we can go ahead and say, well, he probably did it. And then they go
Right.
pick up Joe Blow, and because he doesn't have bail, he sits in jail for 14 days, and maybe he dies in there because they put him in one of those hot box cells where they turn down the temperature and they let you sit in your own shit for days on end, and they don't feed you and they don't let you get your medication and all that. Yeah, sure. That's absolutely what they got is a database full of patsies that they can pin shit to when they need to start sewing up cases. That
Yeah.
open cases make police departments look bad, or at least they used to. I doubt that that's the case now because nobody has any expectation that these pigs are going to do anything except
Right.
beat us down. But
They
beyond
don't care about what the public thinks anymore. They're getting the accolades for revenue generation from their superiors, and that's all they
Right.
really care about.
Yeah, that's all that matters. We're just the suckers that pay the bills. What
Yeah.
are we? We're suckers because we pay them. Just like Christopher Columbus when he landed in Central America, when they got blown off course or whatever, and they didn't have any supplies, and they wound up meeting the Arawak Indians. Well, the Arawak Indians took care of them. They fed them, and they gave them medicine that would make them feel better from their scurvy, and they gave them citrus. Because it grows, oranges, limes, whatever grows there to get rid of their scurvy. Maybe they had, rickets or whatever, and they knew a cure for that. And then they started giving them gifts. Well, here's some gold. You can trade that up and down the coast where you're headed. And what did Christopher Columbus do? He ordered his troops to
Hands
cut their
cut off.
yeah, he ordered his men to cut their fucking hands off because they were like, oh, these people are suckers, man.
Yeah, that's a criminal punishment.
Right. Yeah, right, exactly. Because these people were kind to them, they saw them as being weak and made victims out of them.
Criminally weak, yeah.
Right. They committed crimes against those people. Who's going to hold them accountable?
No, I
No
mean
one.
they consider the people helping them to be a criminal act.
Sure, like they're what are they? Are they trying to get over on us? Is that where they're being nice to us?
Or
What's
just
the end game
criminally
here?
stupid.
Yeah, right. Because they were kind and loving
Yeah,
to these strangers. Let's help out these. These pigs are exactly like the Spaniards and these European explorers who really were just tyrants on vacation. They took a vacation to go subjugate other people. And Christopher Columbus was actually a criminal. He was in big trouble in Spain. He was in big trouble. He was an actual criminal. So he sucked up to the royal court and begged the monarchy for this money so he could go on this expedition to get away from his trouble.
that's right. I heard about that before. I
he
forgot about that.
well that's a historical fact. He was in
Yeah,
trouble for he was a con man. Basically he was a crook.
right.
But what we're dealing with is these pigs. Um, they have been told that they have lordship over us, and they believe it because they're stupid. A lot of them are stupid. A lot of them are just so fucking dumb they could barely even spell the word.
Well, and they've
Uh,
just grown up in this culture.
well, yeah, and we're we talked about this earlier when we were having our private conversation. Modern civilization, at least the western part of it, is bereft of any kind of spiritual substance. We don't understand that this life is a gift and that there are things that we're supposed to be doing. We have no idea what we're supposed to. We have no idea why we're here. We think we're here to buy shit, drink shit, eat shit, fuck shit, and consume shit, or spend the rest of our time producing shit for everybody else who's caught up in this, useless eater system. We are useless, but we've been taught that.
Right.
We and right, and anybody who goes outside of that is considered insane. Oh, you're gonna
That's one of the
stand
reasons. That was one of the justifications why they wanted to make sure that Mary Jane was illegal, because they realized with their early studies that they did that people who smoked it had a high tendency of going, wait a minute, am I just the consumer?
right, or what is this system that we're living in that's beating us down? But they figured out a way to screw us out of any kind of. I follow a guy called Graham Hancock. We talked about him earlier. He's
Yeah.
like he's a mainstream tenured scientists in quotation marks and professors would say that he's fringe archaeologist,
Right.
archaeology or geology
Because
or
he
religious.
acknowledges proof when he finds
Right.
them.
Well, he acknowledges that things happened before us, before recorded history, which actually is recorded, but it's been sequestered by these people that run the planet, these evil, satanic bastards that run this planet. They're monsters.
Right.
They're literally vampires and ogres. These people that are in charge. They're vampiric.
Yeah.
They're parasites, man, and they're
Have you
satanic.
have you ever seen the video where it's like a whole bunch of Russian oligarchs, really like super at the time there weren't even people in the United States really who were that rich, because this was going back to like the early 2000s. But anyways, there's a band that's playing there, and the lights, the fuse box blows up or something, and all the lights in the place goes out. And then looking out over the audience, literally like 4 out of 5 of their eyes are glowing green. Have you seen that?
No, no.
That's real footage, and they're the ones that don't turn green, that don't glow green, are the girls that they have hired to be there, the really super hot, insanely hot ones that are all over their laps and everything like that, and they're jumping up and screaming and running out of the room, and everybody whose eyes didn't turn green is freaking out, and the band just left. But that's real footage. Now they said that they were taking some type of life extending serum. That was what they claimed, and that might be true. I don't know, but it's just interesting. They definitely have grabbed up some of these old technologies and old knowledge.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
and the most modern scientific tech as well.
sure. The Bible warns us against consorting with sorcerers, and the Greek word for that is it's pharmacia,
Right.
pharmacia.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, sorcery or magic, or like black magic, pharmacia. That's the word. Um,
Ancient Greek
certainly,
civilization is one of the degrees that I have.
yeah, certainly. There are at least two different levels of technology and medicine on this planet. And guess what? You and me and everybody else out here who just lives their life and dies from cancer or diabetes complications or heart disease or any number of things that get you killed because doctors have no idea what they're doing, or they won't let us have access to this higher tech because they don't want us living past 75 or 80. They want it for themselves. They want to live forever. The
Right.
Bible. There's a part in the Bible where it says the wicked will hide themselves in the rocks and beg the rocks to fall on them and kill them, but the rocks won't do what they say. They will not be able to die, and they'll just live and suffer.
Right.
Right. That's not the meek. That's not going to happen to the meek. That's the people that are in charge, man. These the Bible calls them the kings of old, the men of renown. That's
It
who
goes
we're
right
dealing
back
with.
to the culture of corruption in our politics and our police and our medical system. It's all mirror of each other.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's all satanic. The root
Yeah.
of the problem in this country is this demoniac. Look, socialism, which leads to communism, is evil. It's evil.
Mhm. Yeah. And you don't have to
Constitutional.
believe, you don't have to necessarily believe in the Bible even to understand that these people are following some kind of a demonic agenda and using those symbols. And
Oh yeah,
yeah,
absolutely, absolutely, man. Bohemian Grove. They're praying to that gigantic owl,
right.
dude. That is Luciferian paganism, dude. That is evil
Absolutely.
ass
I think they actually
fucking.
murdered that guy in that Alex Jones video. I think they killed that guy. His screams were sure convincing.
Well, they're of course they're going to say, well, it was all for show and all this. I know we're getting kind of away from what we usually
Yeah, we
talk
are.
about, but that's okay. I really don't care, man. I really don't care
All
because
right.
all this stuff,
It all ties together.
it all correlates.
And
Graham,
nobody else is making these correlations either.
yeah, Christians and Jews and religious Christians and religiously practicing Jews. What do they hate more than anything else? What culture and religious kind of system do they hate more than anything else? Egyptian, the ancient Egyptians. Now, they say, "Oh, well, they were polytheistic. They worshipped all these different kind of gods." Okay, first of all, God is with a little g when
Right.
they're
There's
taught.
little G and big G God.
Right.
Exactly. It's a
And
difference that yeah.
the little g's, I don't believe the terminology is being translated properly because those were just people that were influential. They were maybe the celebrities. They were absolutely leaders. They were religious leaders. They were political leaders. They were military leaders. They were community leaders. They were agricultural leaders. They were technologically advanced more than we are in certain ways. They had
Oh yeah.
their mathematics were way higher than ours, but most of that religion that they practiced was monotheistic. They referred to the
Yeah,
creator.
they do. Yeah. Not that often, but they do refer to it.
Well, you know why they didn't refer to it constantly? Because they didn't feel like they had to.
Right. I don't think
Be-
that they thought that it was having a big influence in their daily life either.
well, it absolutely was a big influence in their daily life, but they understood it. So they didn't have to make a big deal out of it. It was just
Well,
part
I
of.
think the little G gods were more of these kind of problematic in their life that they had to worry about constantly. I
Well,
mean,
you know
they
that.
know that these things are going to die, even if they might live 260 years. These particular little g gods or whatever.
Well, that's all up for debate because we don't know. But what we do know is that they were very all the Egyptians were very spiritually based. They all had an understanding that we have a purpose while we're here and we're alive. We have a purpose, and there are things that we need to do while we're here and while we're alive. We have a purpose. Every person has a purpose. And that's what the Book of the Dead was all about. They Christians make a big deal about it being satanic and all that when, we just don't know. We don't know. Just like me
Right.
and Kennedy might talk about outer space and say, who's proven that outer space exists the way that they say it does? We don't know. We don't
Right.
know.
There's only a handful of people who could actually verify it.
Right. We don't know if the moon really is made out of green cheese. We don't know that for sure. We just take the word of these people that it's made out of silicates.
But
You
like
know,
you were saying, though, we are the first culture really that I can think of that is lacking that spiritual component. Every other culture, that was a major important part leading all the way up until kind of the scientific revolution. And that's not that doesn't necessarily click because because there's, for example, there's no, the evidence all says that we did not, quote, evolve on this planet. The missing link is an intermediate species that would need 50 cousins on either side of him in order to explain the type of change that happens with evolution. The difference between our most recent, what they want to say is our most recent ancestor, which is not our ancestor at all. It's the ancestors of these creatures that people still see out in the forest. But whatever, they believe that. And the difference, the missing link would need to be, like I said, it need to be 100 different species, and we've never found so much as a fingernail of them, and we never will because it doesn't exist. We just appear in the fossil record, and then when it comes to our DNA, when they map the nuclear side of the human genome, they said, "Oh, we're going to be able to look back and see all the way to when our ancestors." The fish that crawled out onto the land that were
right.
yeah, no. As soon as they've mapped the nuclear side of the human genome, it went back about 400,000 years, and then it just ends as if we don't exist before that. And we must have made a mistake, and we'll redo it. They've redone it 20, 30 times now, and it never comes out different because we don't exist before that. We just appear on the planet looking nothing like anything that's come before us. Those are not the so-called pre-human fossil record is most assuredly not our ancestors, or if they are, there are ancestors in the sense that possibly they are a part of the hybrid that we were made into.
Right. Right. Yeah. The missing link is like the proverbial honest lawyer. They don't exist, man. Every single lawyer is full of shit one way or the other because guess what? They all lie. They're all fallible.
It doesn't really matter what angle you come from with this, scientifically, archaeologically, or whatever. All the evidence all points to the same thing, and that's basically that the Sumerian story is pretty darn close to dead on.
Well, that we can prove nothing about any of that. But we have these cuneiform records, these tablets that go back to Sumer and the land of Ur and basically the Mesopotamian civilizations, right? And there are flood stories, and always in those stories there's always a couple of humans, a man and a woman, that survive by getting in a box and floating, or they find a high enough rock to sit on and they
Well,
survive.
if you look at the Sumerian Noah, which clearly that story is where the Noah's Ark story was borrowed from and changed, largely changed. And even in the Bible, you can kind of see traces of it too. But when you look at the Sumerian story, it's not a boat that floats on the water. It's a flying ship, and it's not a zoo where they keep two of each animal. It's a genetic repository. Everything about the
Sure.
way they describe it is that.
Yeah, it's a scientific arc. It's like
So
the kind of thing that, if the human race had the will to do it, we could send into outer space and recolonize with it. But
right.
because our will the will of our leaders and the people that think they own the planet, that control everything, by suppressing all this ancient knowledge, their will is only to remain in charge and live forever. They don't care about getting to the stars. They don't care about leaving and finding another planet to colonize. They don't care about the progression of the human race. Look where
Yeah,
we're at.
they've grabbed hold of our history and lied about it to the biggest extent that they can. But
Absolutely.
I guess the way that I should have actually worded what I said a minute ago is that every new type of every advancement in DNA, every new archaeological find, every advancement in astrology that we make, they all point to the Sumerian. They all verify something in the Sumerian story to where there, and nothing has come along that has discounted it. Have you ever seen the picture, the Sumerian picture of the gods giving man the plowshare?
I think so. Yes, I
And
believe
in the
I believe I
background,
have.
there's a representation of the solar system in the background, and it's perfect with all 10 planets. They considered our moon to be a planet, not a moon, and it is more of a planet relationship that we have with that body, because if you look at Jupiter's moons, they're 200th of the size of the planet, and that's pretty much the case Mars, everywhere, but ours is a quarter of our size, so it's more like a planet relationship. But anyways, they put an accurate depiction, relative places and relative orbits and sizes perfect of our solar system. How did they have that information? We didn't discover that Neptune and Uranus existed until 1870, and we didn't discover Pluto until 1930, and we didn't know that Uranus and Neptune were blue and green until the Hubble telescope went up in 1970. But the Sumerians call them the blue-green watery twins.
Yeah, that is a really good question, and then we have the look, I what we have that's written down is about all that we can call solid evidence. The archaeological record that from modern times, with very few exceptions, is all bias, man. They're teaching bias about Göbekli Tepe.
Absolutely.
They're teaching bias about Machu Picchu. They're teaching bias about the henges. Stonehenge isn't the only one. There are hundreds, maybe thousands of henges around the planet, and these were made by supposedly, during periods where the human race was supposedly primitive savages that
Oh, here,
were.
check this out for indoctrination and what you're talking about. When I was in college and I got my ancient Greek civilization degree, part of what we did, one of my classes was ancient Egypt, or a couple of them were ancient Egypt related. But anyways, or no, that was my archaeology class where this happened. Anyways, the teacher in there had told us that the pyramids were not that impressive because they're not hollow, that they're just a pile of rocks. And I'm ashamed to say that later on, I argued that with people that I know who were wiser than I was. The reality of the pyramids are that the Great Pyramid, for example, is over 2 million blocks, and every one was pre-planned to be exactly the size and shape that it is, so that they can all fit together in the end in a way that makes them earthquake resistant and has all kinds of other advantages, and has the various chambers that were necessary to make it into a free energy machine or whatever it was.
Yeah, the truth about the pyramids is we don't know. The Great Pyramid has the Queen's Chamber and the King's Chamber, and then they have these relief chambers, and then they have all these little shafts that go off. And they haven't even, to this day, they haven't even explored those shafts. They sent a robot. There was a dude that sent the first robot in there and they found a door, a metal door with handles on it, and the robot somehow it drilled a hole in it or whatever, and then stuck a camera through there, and what they found is another door on the other side.
Right, another door like 3 feet on the other side. That's right.
Right.
I think
So,
they've probably opened these things and they just don't tell us. But whatever the case, though,
there's
for
a
example,
purpose. It's not just a pile of rocks. It's a machine.
yeah,
It's en-
absolutely, it is.
it's engineered for a purpose.
It's
You know,
probably I've seen brilliant engineers who have laid out the case and using what we know about the pyramids. and the chambers and whatnot, that it is probably a free energy machine and possibly something else as well. But the most likely thing is that it was a free energy machine and that they would use red mercury in the area that we've now below the pyramid. And I can't even remember exactly how it all was explained, but it was pretty brilliant and it seemed to be right on. And he even overlaid like what a machine like this would be, and it was kind of a perfect match. And it wasn't his design that he was using either. But one of the things about that, though, too, is, for example, the quarry at and it's somewhere in Lebanon. Anyways, the quarry where the pregnant stone lies.
Okay.
Okay, so the pregnant stone, you can look at pictures of it online, and there's people standing on it. They look like ants, basically. It's a picture from the air, and it's such a huge monolith. And you can see on this thing these giant tool marks. And what happened is they partway through shaping it out of the quarry there, they cracked it, and looks like they just cracked it, and they said, "Oh, oops, push too hard. Okay, let's move on to the next one."
Yeah,
but they clearly believed they were going to be able to finish this thing, lift it out of there, and move it all the way to Egypt.
Sure. I mean, that's there are several examples of that monoliths that are still in the quarries because they broke while they were shaping.
We couldn't, if the whole world got together today and pooled our resources and knowledge, we could not move that thing. We could lift it out of the ground with the 13 largest cranes that we have in existence right now, but then we couldn't take it anywhere. And we probably couldn't lift it out of the ground because there's still a spine of rock on the underside that we don't have maybe actually with some of this new technologies that they have with like water cutting, high pressure water cutting. But at least 20 years ago, they didn't have the technology yet to even cut free that spine underneath. And who's going to get under there and do that? Any kind of saw blade that you used or whatever, all that pressure from the top is going to pinch that off.
Yeah. Well, they had to move a certain temple to make way so they could make the Aswan Dam. I think this was that they started the project in the 60s, but the technology didn't exist for them to move these gigantic structures. They had to cut those things into pieces and then they had to build gantries with cranes on them to even lift the sections. And they had to cut this one statue. I don't remember what the pharaoh's name was, but they had to cut it in so many pieces to even begin to move it. And it was one piece of rock that wasn't from that location. They cut it or shaped it. Maybe they cut it into a block and then they sculpted it on scene, but they moved that rock from the quarry I believe it was the man, I can't remember. If I try to say the name of the temple,
I think it was the temple. I don't know. It might have been the Temple of Zeus, but I'm not sure.
Well, no, it was in Egypt. It was in they had to move it because they were gonna create.
Oh, the Aswan Dam.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, yeah. What was that? I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I can't remember, but it's they address it on in the movie Chariots of the Gods. Which is full of all kinds of faulty information, but the dude that wrote it, I can't remember his name right now. Patrick von Daniken.
Yeah, right? Daniken.
The Dutch dude.
He's a brilliant guy too. He speaks like 13 languages, and
he is a very brilliant man. And he's taken a lot of heat from schooled archaeologists because his ideas are kind of out there compared to them. But those guys, those are establishment guys. They're being told what to look for and how to describe it by corporations and religious and governmental leaders. They're told not to muddy the water by talking about truth.
Absolutely.
We just want theories. We don't care about truth. We just need to feed these people some pap to shut them up. That's all.
Well, and that's one of the ways that this whole big conspiracy happens. You don't have to have everybody meeting in a room and talking about it, because the people on the religious side and the people on the scientific side do not want to give an inch to each other no matter what. So they hide these things as they come along, as they find, they hide these truths. So you've had 1 million people for hundreds of years now hiding on both sides, participating in this conspiracy to hide our history.
Yeah, and they're not they're not really friends. They're not allies because they
No.
hate each other just as much as they hate us. But the truth is that these military leaders that invaded Egypt, they were also backed up by the Catholic Church. They stole all of as much of that information as they could carry, and they brought it back to Rome, and it's sitting in the fucking Vatican today, right
Yeah,
now. And don't you ever think that these people in charge are not using that information and that knowledge and that technology against us. When it was
absolutely.
meant, it was put in that library so it would make it to future generations, so we wouldn't live in this quote unquote technologically advanced civilization as slaves. The people that wrote the stuff down weren't writing it down for kings and queens. They were writing it down for the people that manned the guillotines during the French Revolution. They were writing it
God,
for
I'd like to
us.
get in there and see what's in there.
Yeah, it would completely change the world. But, look, there is no way that this technology cannot rise again in the hands of the majority of us because it's part of our genetic heritage. And I believe in reality manifestation. We manifest what we think, what we see in our minds.
Quantum
Even
mechanics is another one that I studied, and I mean that's pretty much well proven.
even these really brilliant minds like Sagan and DeGrasse, and I'm not going to say the rest of them because they're all bought and sold. DeGrasse was bought and sold. Sagan, I think, was a little bit influenced by those people.
I hate the graph.
He is nothing but a dumbed down version of Carl Sagan. Carl Sagan, people say, well, he was an atheist and all that. No, he never disavowed the idea that there might be a creator. He just said, that it's not likely. He said he would be the first one to admit that it's not impossible, but would be highly unlikely. But on the other hand, he would say it was also highly unlikely that the universe just came into existence out of nothing.
That's
Which,
right, and there's about 17 or 18 different elements of the universe that are highly unlikely to have come together, and that you would have to have in order for our reality to be like it is and support the possibility of life.
right?
It,
Yeah,
it,
exactly.
it's about as likely as a hurricane blowing through a junkyard and creating a fighter jet.
Yeah, exactly. It's like expecting an avalanche to uh to assemble the Acropolis in
Yeah,
Greece.
it's just about that likely, exactly.
It could happen, but if you do a probability on it, it's going to be a gigantic number that can only be expressed theoretically.
Right.
You're never going to be able to do the math on that because it's so fucking highly improbable. Just the existence of What's the Matter You, Jeff Hates Pigs, Doc Savage, and Kennedy Walker is so fucking unlikely that the probability is not something that you can calculate. It's incalculable. That's how unique we really are.
Absolutely.
And that's why I think that this ancient knowledge that's been lost to us is so important. And we have way more value than we've been taught. We've been taught that we're trash, that we don't matter, that we just live our useless little lives, and unless we become famous and become celebrities somehow or become powerful, our existence doesn't matter. I don't believe that, man, because like Monty Python in The Meaning of Life, there's that song, about how unlikely is your birth, that, what I'm
Right.
talking
I
about.
mean, you are sperm number 275, and I mean egg number 275, and sperm number one Google zillion
Right.
or whatever.
Yeah.
If your dad had one more happy time or whatever, or if any second of your parents' lives had gone any differently, or any second of their parents' lives, and basically the president is a mathematical is a it's the what's the word I'm looking for? It's
It's
basically
incalculable. It's
well,
incalculable, man.
it's a culmination of the equation of the past, which includes every single second and every just like a butterfly flaps its wings on one side of the world and a hurricane happens somewhere else. Even, the existence
Yeah,
of if you went back in time, for example, I wrote a big paper about this. If you were to so much as swat one fly, you would absolutely 100% change the future, because it's all cause and effect, cause effect, cause effect, cause effect. And
exactly.
so, yeah, so every moment of the present is just a culmination of every moment of the past, and every moment of the past has to go basically exactly like it did, or it would be dramatically different. It's just like if you didn't. One time you didn't get stopped going to the store because there was some taxi driver who was flipping you off and talking shit. You didn't meet your wife or whatever. Just little things like that is kind of an example of how these little things in our lives, but it breaks down all the way to the second by second.
Right, right. Um, with that in mind, the fact that these people are keeping this ancient knowledge, this ancient wisdom from us, it's a crime against the entire existence of this planet. It's a crime against the human race. It's a crime against our very purpose for being here. You know, uh, this
Absolutely.
dude, compared to a modern day Christian, the Christians that existed way back when, and even probably up until the 1500s, um, certain sects, the Christians today have no Christ-like
No,
characteristics.
no.
Most of
It's
them.
a joke that they even talk about Christ.
Yeah, and when I hear the Joker, the orange Joker with his bad suit and his horrible fucking hair, talk about Christians, I want to vomit. I mean, I can barely listen to him anyway, and I try not to because the guy is disgusting. He is the antithesis of a human being.
Well, they made a deal with the devil. They said we'll support you if you'll get our Supreme Court filled up
Yeah.
with,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
radical.
Yep. We are where we are today because the human race it's like, they say that at the source of any river, you can with a shovel divert its course forever.
Right.
With just one shovelful of dirt, you can change the
Absolutely.
entire characteristics of that river, all forever, and you
That's
can never.
true. Yeah.
Yeah, it will never be the same as it was before. And this is what these people have done to the destiny and the birthright of the human race.
Absolutely.
Uh,
It's
you know,
we could. I mean, there's no doubt. We already know that we could have free energy. We could have cars that run on water. We've seen these inventions come up, and then the people that create them are alive, and the inventions disappear from the news, and you never hear
yep.
anything else about them.
Uh,
There's
It,
people
it,
who've gone through the patent office and found all kinds of crazy patents that are. There's no doubt they're real.
yeah. There was a
They're in
guy.
somebody's hands. You know.
Yeah, they get bought up by some companies, energy corporations that want to keep their condensed energy viable as a renewable income stream forever. So we we stick with this combustion engine. If the combustion engine was the way to go, don't you think that the Egyptians would have been driving cars and that we would have found the cars in Egypt?
Right,
Huh?
right. They could do more than we could do.
Yeah. And what were they? They were going to war in chariots. That was their thing, man. Chariot troops, drawn by horses, two wheels, and a chassis.
But somehow they could move these giant blocks that we can't even move today.
Well, they understood that they didn't have to do it that way.
I think that they use sound frequency. That seems to be what the conclusion that Graham Hancock and all. And you know who Billy Carson is, correct?
Yeah, I don't know what to think about that guy because he seems like kind of a used car salesman, but I'm going to go ahead and attach something to that. He is highly intelligent. He is a salesman. He's a salesman.
Right.
He's in it. He's in it to make money, but
He's
he
highly knowledgeable though, and highly
he
intelligent. Yeah.
he is extremely intelligent, and he's. I believe that he's a moral person to the extent that he feels like he has to be. You know what I mean? Right? Like
Right.
I can't. Nobody can. He has his haters just like everybody else does. He's got his trolls, Hancock and Carlson have their trolls. Einstein had trolls, but you know what? Einstein stole all of his ideas from other scientists and other
Right.
mathematicians. He Einstein was a plagiarist. He was a plagiarist. I'm not saying that he wasn't intelligent. He was smart enough to steal shit from other people and turn
Are
it
you talking
into
about, are
his.
you thinking about Edison actually? Because I don't think Einstein was so much of a plagiarist. I mean, he did admit though, like when he was asked, what's it like to be a genius? He said, I don't know. Ask Nikola Tesla.
Right. Well, Einstein took other people's uh, equations and took them another step. He stood on the shoulder of giants to reach the light in the sky. He knew that, but he was still a plagiarist to a certain degree. Edison was just he was a socialist, and
Here's the truth. Yeah.
him and Bell were both socialists, and they understood that Tesla's technology was going to ruin their business model because both of those guys, Edison and Bell, both owned copper mines. Tesla was going to eliminate the need for any kind of wiring. All these problems that we have during big storms and earthquakes and high winds would never have happened if we had Tesla technology and a Tesla-based grid.
Right. There wouldn't be an argument over the CO2 levels in the atmosphere either.
Right, because we'd be driving electric cars that were powered by this wireless grid that were using magnetically generated energy. That's
Exactly.
There's something in Tesla's technology. It's all about magnetism and grounding, and it's about manipulating earth energy. It's not about digging up oil and coal and lithium and all these other evil ass cadmium and all these other evil ass elements that are supposed to stay in the ground.
Absolutely.
Stay in the ground. Let me ask you something. What do you think protects us from the radiation that is in the crust of the earth? What protects us from that?
The magnetosphere.
No.
Oh, from the radiation. Oh, the radiation in the earth.
Right,
oh, right. These elements that are in the ground. I assume you're gonna.
Well, the slate. We know that slate, because of its density and its porousness, is an absolute barrier to radon and all these other different kinds of radiation that comes to the surface. And what have we been doing since the beginning of drilling for oil? We've been breaking that shit up. That's what fracking
I didn't
is.
know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, fracking pulverizes that shale.
Oh, I did know that though. Yeah, that's no good.
Yeah, it pulverizes it, and then we wonder why we have this gigantic.
And fracking is when they're putting some kind of waste gas into the ground. Is that what that is?
Well, it's proprietary. I call it demon piss because it's some of the most evil shit that comes out of chemists' labs that they're using to shatter that shale. They're using these really horribly organically active volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, that they're shooting down into that stuff. And
so they're not trying to get rid of waste. They're actually deliberately trying to break up that shale.
Well, I mean that's when you're talking about water aquifers that go from coast to coast, and they're regional or they're nationwide or whatever, this is where we get our clean water from, right? They're also destroying that, but they're pulverizing that shale, and they've been doing it since they've been doing it since the 30s, 40s probably. But it was a different kind of injection that they were doing back then. They were just injecting to stimulate the oil. They were putting the oil reservoirs that they drill through all those layers.
They make the oil rise up higher so they can get it easier. Is that what's going on?
Well, what they used to do was they would drill the well, and either they found oil or not. And if they found oil, then they pressurized it with water or inert gas. I don't know. I'm not an expert on it,
Okay.
But I know that the process of fracking has been around for a long time, but the chemical fracking that they're doing now is absolutely satanic. It is satanic because it's getting in. I mean, I could preach about this for hours and hours and hours.
We're not even going to be able to tell, though. Is it that's causing all the birth defects, or is it the COVID, or is it,
it's listen. We live in the most toxic environment on Earth in America.
in
China
history?
China has the worst air quality, and they are absolutely destroying that country, but nothing like we're doing here with like I was talking to my dad about this, and he was telling me about these VOCs that they call them forever chemicals, right? Everybody's heard that.
Right.
These corporations use these chemicals for this, that, and the other process, and then they just pour them into the ground. There is not one single surface source of water that is not contaminated by this shit anywhere on Earth.
Right.
Anywhere on Earth. Every single bit of surface water has been contaminated. That includes all of our lakes, all of our rivers, the oceans. The only place you're going to get clean water from is out of the ground.
Yeah, we're getting to the point where we're not going to be able to eat any of the fish anymore.
Or they're all just going to die.
Right.
They're going to be so contaminated. You're right, man, because all of those chemicals, because they're volatile organic compounds, guess where they go? Into the organisms. And guess where they stay? Inside the organisms, from one organism to another.
Yeah.
We eat crabs from the Bering Sea that are contaminated with all this radiation from Fukushima, along with all the chemicals that got released when they when they poured it, whatever. We're because we are so backwards with our technology compared to antiquity, prehistoric human civilizations had less of an impact organically than we do now. And it's not because of our density of population, it's because of the way we do things. These people in charge figured out this way that they can control energy and kill us at the same time. Not for 1 second believe that these people in charge drink contaminated water.
Oh, no, hell no.
They're sending expeditions to the North Pole and to Antarctica, and they're bringing water from those glaciers and icebergs and shit that haven't been exposed to the atmosphere for hundreds of thousands of years.
Right. Or they have big giant filter systems on all these big wealthy, super mansions and whatnot too. So.
Well, yeah, but these forever chemicals cannot be removed from the water. They are forever contaminants. They're going to be there forever unless we make some kind of a backwards breakthrough to this ancient technology that they've kept from us. We're never going to figure out how to solve these problems. These are all just symptoms of a disease that planet Earth has, and that disease is called the elites. The elites are the disease on planet Earth. Not, they say that the rest of humanity is the disease on planet Earth. People like Prince Philip, they just want everybody dead. Well, if you think that if these people really think, and the World Economic Forum, they want to decrease the population by 2/3. Well, if that's
kind of buy into that to some extent too, I'm ashamed to say, but
look, if they're so willing to kill off 2/3 of the population, I would encourage them to go ahead and go first.
I was going to say, start with themselves. Exactly.
Yeah, go ahead and set the example for the rest of us by all of you killing yourselves. All the Saxe-Gothas, all the De Beers, all the all the Habsburgs, all the
But
Warburgs,
they
all
don't
the
consider themselves to be human. They're not human in the way we are. We're subhumans, or they're
no,
something else.
right. Yeah, they see us as just wild apes when really
Yeah.
they're the ones that are the monsters. They're the vampires and the ogres of legend. They're the kings of old, the men of renown that caused the earth to get wiped out by the first flood.
They're like
Be,
plagues and viruses. They're just indiscriminate killers that'll take everybody take out the host along
yeah, they're
with
parasites.
yeah.
They're monsters, but because they've wrangled all the money and they've created all these systems of satanic control over humankind, that they've elevated themselves when really they're stuck here too.
Yeah.
They're stuck here too, man. If the surface is ruined and we have to move underground, what kind of life is that going to be? We weren't we weren't destined to live like moles.
It's going to be depressing for a lot of people. I mean, they'll have all kinds of sunroom light rooms and whatnot that you go to try to get your vitamin D and keep depression down and whatnot. But there's only so much you can do when I'm sure the depressing fact that the surface is destroyed is going to be too much for a lot of minds.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But 2/3 of us are going to be gone if they have their way. So
True.
who's going to stand up to them? Who's going to stand up to them?
I actually disagree in that I think that these bunkers that people like Bezos are building, and I think they're going to work for them. I think they can probably go down there with their families and their best doctors and everybody, whoever else they choose, and they can probably live down there for 100,000 or indefinitely. Pretty much, they've got the ability to produce food, they've got the ability to filter water, everything that they need. But it's not a pretty, I don't know. I guess maybe to them they don't mind that idea.
Well, that these are people that are not human beings as we understand human beings, and they're so far removed from us that if we had listen, I've met some people that were in positions of power that my mother was very politically active in the Republican Socialist Party, and and she courted these people, and my I'm not going to say too much about my family, but they were in a position to host these people. And I met this guy who was he was a state senator. And the second that I took his hand to shake his hand, my entire epidermis felt like it was crawling off of me trying to get away from this guy. Okay.
Oh wow.
It was an instinctual reaction that was physical. It was a physical reaction to the evil inside this man. It was like touching a deadly fucking snake, like a fleur de lance, one of the most deadly snakes that lives in South America. It was like grabbing something that is going to kill you. And
that's another thing that they've hidden from us is that we have these other abilities to sense. We know when someone's, or it's different in different people. Some have it more advanced, and other people have it less. But you might know when someone's looking at a crowd in a baseball stadium and look directly at them, because you feel them looking at you.
Right.
Or we have
right.
we have sense of danger, and you have that sense. You had that sense just by touching this guy. No, so leading up to shaking his hand, you had no clue, right? It was just from the contact.
Well, there's always this thought in my mind, like, oh great, here's the enemy coming. But he looked like a friendly guy. He was, of course, he was polished and well groomed, and he was, but. When I touched his hand and shook his hand, I had a physical reaction that wasn't related to anything that was in my mind. It was like realizing that you're being stalked by a tiger or something. There's a physical reaction when we know that we are in mortal fucking danger, and that's when our skin starts crawling and we start getting the creeps. Dude, my entire skin felt like somebody had grabbed me by the back of the neck and was trying to pull my skin off. That's how horrified my physical reality was by touching this thing.
Right. And for people who doubt that type of thing, just look at dogs for the proof that exists. There was a guy. My mom had a big bull mastiff named Harry. He was just the greatest dog, almost 200, not 200 pounds, but he was huge. And he was friendly with everybody. She lives right here on the corner of this park, and he would sit out there all day, and people would come and they just loved to give him attention and everything. But there was one guy who had kind of creeped my mom out a couple times. The guy didn't really do anything to make that happen, though, but she just kind of had this weird sense, and he had come up and asked her a few weird questions one day. And then later on, when Harry was around, he came around again, and the minute that he came around, Harry did something he'd never done before, just caught sight of this guy and immediately jumped up, and the hair went up all over him. No reason. The guy hadn't even said a word yet.
Yeah.
So you can see that dogs and other creatures, they have this kind of sixth sense. Now, they've been dumbing it down on us with fluoride in the water to harden our pineal gland and every other way that they can, just trying to convince us, just by us being convinced that these things don't exist, that's really 90% of the battle to keep people from realizing these things. And this is one of the ways in which this all ties in with other subjects. And I don't want to get into Sasquatch or anything, but the whole notion that there are things that we can learn from other parts of the world that are tied in with the whole policing. There's other conspiracies and other ways that the news is lying to us, whether it's our history or whether it's about hominins in the woods or whether it's about, and there's reasons why they're doing that. And it's all tied together.
Well, they want to turn off our primitive instincts, because that primitive instinct, and I've talked about this before, is tied directly into our potential as violent killers. Okay?
Absolutely. Yeah.
If we don't have that inner caveman that makes our skin start crawling or makes it feel like your skin is trying to get
but he's
away.
Necessary in certain situations, and if you don't have him, you're going to be dead. Yeah.
Listen, man, that instinct is why we are still here. That's how the human race rose to dominance, man.
Right.
And I have theories on how we got pushed into that, and the beginnings of human emotional attachment. Like, we're emotionally attached to each other, whether we admit it or not. Without that emotional attachment, we never survive as a species and become the dominant species on the planet.
That's a perfect example, though, too, because the way that they want to neuter us in that way, they want us to call somebody else. They want us to call the police to handle every little problem.
Right. Yeah. Right. They want to groom us into being victims.
Right. Yeah, exactly. They want to kill that part of us where in all of history, you would need to have this part of you where you can recognize it when the world isn't big enough for the two of you. And you don't ever have to be the aggressor. It can all, you can be the person that's never really at fault for it, but you nonetheless recognize, hey, this person is, as long as they exist, I'm not going to be safe and my family's not going to be safe. Or in this moment, they're not safe because of this person, and which you have to flip that on and handle it. And now they've killed that in us so badly that we have to call, he's touching me, Yeah,
there's a bad man here who's going to do bad things to us. I want to play this clip from Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which is a science fiction movie that was first made in the 50s, right? With Kevin McCarthy as the main character. And this scene is from the 1978 or 1979 version with Donald Sutherland, Brooke Adams, Jeff Goldblum, Leonard Nimoy.
Right.
And this is where McCarthy gets his cameo. I just because this relates to what I'm talking about. Okay.
Roll
so
that.
let's watch this for a minute. It's 2.5 minutes. We're gonna watch the whole thing.
Did I ever tell you the one about the English Camel Corps? Did I? Mm-mm. They're trapped in the desert, in the Sahara Desert. They've been surrounded by Rommel for 40 days, and they've run out of food. And the captain comes and makes an announcement to the men. And he says, "Men, I have some good news for you and some bad news for you." And one of the men says,
"Oh, wait, you have told me this one."
"Oh." Can I tell it to you again? Oh my God! Oh my God! Lock the door! Lock the door!
They're coming! They're coming! Help! Help! They're coming! They're coming! Listen to me! Listen dangerous. Please, listen to me. Something terrible. Please. You're next. Here they are. They're already here. Come. You're next. They're coming. They're coming.
Must have done something. The policeman will help.
Oh my God. That poor man. What was he talking about?
I'll phone a witness report in when I get to the bookstore.
Okay, so this movie is about these plants that come to planet Earth, and they take over your body, right? And they destroy your physical body, but they maintain some of your intellect, but all of your emotion and all of your instincts are gone. Okay, that's this guy. That's Kevin McCarthy, the guy who comes up and says, "They're here. You're next. You're in danger. You're in danger." He's trying to warn them, but one of them runs him over in the street, and most of those people standing there have already been turned into these zombies, and there's just a few human beings left. The ones that are actually showing concern for this dude. You can see them in that scene. They're leaning down and they're like, "Oh my God," And Donald Sutherland and Brooke Adams are still human, and the movie is very profound. In a lot of ways, man, but that's what they want us to be. They want us to be these unemotional, detached zombies that we go to work and we go home, and we go to work and we go home, and we go to work and we go home.
Or we do nothing and we just receive our stipend or whatever.
Well, there's no need for any of that because it's all been outmoded by these creatures from outer space that took over. But it could also, it was back when they made the first movie, it was a correlation with communism. Right. It was sort of a correlation with communism. But in this newer, in the old one too, but in this new one, it's about what does it mean to be human? And the fact of the matter is that most people have no idea what it means to be human. What it means to be human is that you care about what happens to the next person.
Right.
You care what happens to those sheep herders on the other side of the planet. You care what happens to the people that are living in squalor in Sao Paulo, or pick any city.
You care
in
what
South
happens.
America.
You care what happens to animals.
Right. Yeah. You you
not
care.
necessarily the food. You're not against harvesting food, but I don't know if you've seen this phenomenon. It's insane, of these wild animals, predators, prey, whether moose and lions, mountain lions, and every other species, bears, where they're coming to these highways or wherever people are, and they're flagging people down, and they keep on making these motions where they'll turn and kind of go a little distance or whatever, and they're even coming and jumping right up on people, and people, "Oh, look at the mountain lion is jumping on me and he's not hurting me, he must want pets." No, he's trying to get your attention and get you to follow. And then when some idiot finally gets a bright idea that, oh, it wants us to follow, they follow him, and there's some mud wallow that their baby's fallen into or something that they can't get him out.
Right. Whales have been doing this too.
Yeah,
Recently.
I saw that, a whale that was caught in some net, or orcas. They were orcas. They came and got help from a boat. Nobody would believe any of this if it wasn't caught on video. 20 years ago, people wouldn't believe these stories. I'm sure it's been happening forever, but no one's been wanting to say it because they'd be called crazy.
Exactly. And what those kind of occurrences beg the question, like, how do we even compare to these creatures that we call wild animals when they know that we can help them and they come to us? Man, dude, I watched this video the other day of this shark, and the shark was coming up on the the bow of this little fishing boat. You know, there were people out on a 32-footer or whatever it was. It was a small console boat, and this shark kept coming up, and he was bumping the boat, and he was, you know, flipping his tail, and he was coming up on the diver platform. You know how they have the platform you stand on the back where the motor is. And he was coming up, you know, putting himself up with his fins and
What, do
stuff.
you have a hook in his mouth or something?
No, there was a sperm whale that had a rope or something around its jaw. So
Oh, wow.
you know, there was a boat with some divers, and they dove. The shark led them to this sperm whale, right? And they dove, and the shark was bumping into the sperm whale gently to show them where the problem was. And as soon as the humans got it, the shark like gave him plenty of space, and he wasn't acting like he. I know exactly what you're talking about, man. It's like these animals understand. They understand, number one, that we can kill them. They understand that we're killers. They get that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, Kurt, you have a point there. I get that.
There's some way
Yeah.
I can't see the chat, I guess, huh?
No.
So I tried clicking it earlier and it kicked me out.
Well, this is a profound statement, but you know, me and you, we understand that, and Kurt gets it too. You know, these animals are more in touch with us than we are with them.
Oh,
When-
yeah.
When sharks attack people and kill them, it's a mistake. It's a case of mistaken identity. Okay, they see a surfer on a board paddling, and they think it's a seal, right?
I saw that happen once.
Yeah, you know,
In the inlet in the Halem Bay, there's these people surf there. It's like rock jetties on either side, and there's good waves, and the surfers come there and they surf on there. And I actually didn't see the attack happen, but I saw that there was a commotion, and this kid had flown up like 15 feet in the air and splashed back down, and he was kind of looking around confused. And then people on both sides, on the jetties on both sides, could see this shark just rose up from the depths, and it was about a 15-foot sand tiger shark, which that's about the record size as far as we know. And
yeah.
he freaked out. He freaked out and kicked at it and started swimming away.
Okay, but
But
did the
it didn't
shark?
attack him. No,
Okay,
it thought
so-
that he was a seal, and it had bit a big hole in his board, thinking that he was a seal.
Yeah. So the problem with a mistake from a predator that has a mouthful of razor sharp knives is that when they make a mistake, it's mostly fatal to us because we're pretty tough, man. Human beings are tougher than we think. We're a lot tougher than we think physically. You know, but once they make that mistake and they injure us, usually we die. You know,
Right, we're
because-
actually not very tough compared to other animals.
Well, right, exactly. But, you know, when we're in the ocean or we're up on a mountain and it's, you know, like Mount Everest, we are in a hostile fucking environment. As soon as you step into the surf, you don't even have to be in 12 inches of water. You don't even have to be all the way up to your neck in the water.
No, most attacks happen in like 12 or to 20 inches.
Right, because those sharks will come up in the surf. You know, I've been to beaches in multiple places on planet Earth, and I've seen mako sharks almost beach themselves coming after crabs that are in the sand.
Yeah.
Okay, because makos prefer shellfish. That's
Well,
their
there's more food along the shore there than anywhere
Of
else.
course.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, because it's not as deep, and that's where the most of the crustaceans live. And sharks don't tend to go really deep looking for food if they don't have to. You know, like when you know, but here's the thing that you're talking about is these animals, they understand that we can help them. They
Yeah.
know that because they've seen us, they've watched us for generations, and they know what we can do. So what does it tell you about the intelligence of a bull shark?
Right.
Like the one that led those divers to the sperm whale that had
And that's cross species. That's absolutely amazing.
right. You know, why would a shark give a shit about a sperm whale?
They may have
Well-
been hunting partners. Sometimes they team up like that.
Sure, man, they have the symbiotic relationships, and sure they do. But, you know, I think that that the human beings have grossly underestimated the intelligence and the instincts that animals have. And the fact that they realize that we can help them shows a level of intelligence that we have no idea about.
And they're concerned for their young, going beyond just a quick instinctual reaction in the face of a danger. You know,
Right,
that
right.
there's these animals that come to get help from people. They're in so much distress, and it's not even their young always. It can just be another member of their herd or whatever.
Right, right, exactly. And it kind of makes us look like shit.
Yeah, it kind of does.
Because what are we concerned about? We're concerned about stepping on other people to get ahead. At least in this country, we're very much economically aggressive. We will fuck somebody else over to get their job.
Well, these are all side effects of what I was talking about earlier. They want us to lose our virtue entirely.
Right. We've lost our purpose, and since we don't have a purpose, they will be happy to provide us one.
Or a cage.
But it's not going to be what's best for us. It's not going to be what we as human beings need. Kurt, I agree with you, man. You're right. We live on a plane. There are different planes of existence. Clearly, that's the case. Physical sciences related to physics, has proven that. Has proven that there are other planes of existence.
Some of these whistleblowers from the Hadron Collider and whatnot, I don't know, you can't necessarily just believe everything they say, but there's been a few that were clearly there, and they've had some interesting things to say about what's come through these portals that they've opened.
Oh yeah, that's okay. I read a book years ago, long before it became a movie. It was it's the Michael Crichton movie Timeline. The book was Timeline, and then they made it into a movie, which was, it didn't go into enough depth. It was a good movie, but the book was way better. And their argument was, you're not really going back into the past. You're going to another reality.
Right.
You're not
or either that, or when you change something, you create a divergence where you've got one that stays the same, and one that's been changed.
Right. But if you're going to another reality, this is where the whole premise of the story falls apart, because it was all based on going to this other timeline. Right? Okay, so if it's in another timeline, then we're not going to see any evidence of what the dude that went back and stayed there did. We're not going to see that because it's not going to be in our timeline.
Right. Unless there's something
timeline
that he could bring forward with him that could help us.
Right.
If
right.
he,
Well,
if he can return and come back. I don't know if you can. It seems unlikely you'd be able to go and return though. But
well, the other problem is the Earth is moving so fast that if you try to come back here, you're going to, theoretically, I don't know how any of this might work. I don't even understand really the theory
17,000 miles per hour.
Right. How are you going to come back to the Earth when it's now, you've been gone for 4 days. The Earth is now, more than 250,000 miles away from where it was when you left.
More than that even.
Your technology would have to anchor you to a point in space, not a point in time. It's space-time travel. But we're getting way off the
we're
subject.
getting far afield
But
here, though,
the reality is, and Kurt puts his finger on it here, we live on a plane, and that plane has rules, and the rules were understood by the ancients.
That's right. That's how they had these technologies to move these big rocks around, and you can see that around the world too. After whatever the catastrophe was, it seems to have been a flood, almost undoubtedly, whatever caused it, or if there was a magnetic pole shift or whatever the reason. After that, you see that these people from this Atlantis or whatever you want to call this advanced civilization, they went to different places around the world where they then continued to work with these immense stones and whatnot, and they built things, but then generation after generation that technology vanishes and the things that they're building get lesser and lesser and lesser.
Right. And this is something that me and Kennedy have talked about, mud flood theory. You know, that there were all these ancient structures all around the world that got torn down because they would challenge the historical record.
Oh yeah,
The version of history that these demonic elites want to put onto us.
absolutely.
These satanic projections into our reality that we call the elites are, you know, they want to wipe all that out. You know, there's I live in Ohio, and there's a whole bunch. You know, the mound builders were extremely active in
Oh,
Ohio.
you got interesting stuff there. Yeah, and a lot
Oh,
of giants were dug up in that area too.
yeah, up in Conneaut, Ohio, which is in the northeast part of the state. There's the Conneaut giants and little people up there too, and there were actual skeletons of both species dug up, and they were confiscated by the government, and probably they're sitting in a room in the basement of the Smithsonian or whatever. But
Actually,
the
they're
point,
probably at the bottom of the ocean, according to one whistleblower who's very believable that worked there at the Smithsonian. But yeah, there's a guy, that David Paulides, who wrote a book called like, I can't even remember, Giants and something in North America, and he got the newspaper articles going back from several hundred years and corroborating evidence of any kind that he could find.
yeah,
And every story ends the same. The Smithsonian came along and took the bones and then said they would get back to the people about them or whatever. And then the next time they're asked about them, they never existed.
right, right. The property that where they found those giants and little people up in Conneaut is now owned by a super wealthy. He's probably one of these vampirical monsters, and he won't let anybody come on there. He won't let any scientists come on there, no archaeologists, no anthropologists, nobody. His property is no go for anyone. Anyone.
Yeah,
And
he's that billionaire that started NIDS, National Institute for Science Discovery. Or
yeah,
Discovery.
and that just goes to prove what we've been saying. Here's a guy who gives, establishes this organization, and then he denies access to a site that could prove or disprove this, that, and the other theory about life in North America in prehistoric antiquity.
Right.
Right. But the thing I wanted to talk about was these mounds, and they call them they were in Ohio. They were the not Hopi, but I can't remember the name of them. It doesn't matter. Fort
They don't have
Ancient.
that right. They don't have that correct anyways.
No, they're wrong about the Clovis people, the Hopewell, and
Right.
there was another one I can't remember it right now. But we got the Serpent Mound, which is an astronomic measurement device during the equinox. I can't remember whether it's the summer or the winter solstice. It lines up with the sun in the west.
Right.
On that one day of the year, it rises in line with the Serpent Mound and the egg. It's got an egg in its mouth.
Yeah, Megan. Yeah.
Everybody's seen it. It lines up just like the pyramids. Relative to where it's at on the planet, it's an astronomical measuring device. It's a timepiece. It's a
Well,
gigantic timepiece.
yeah. It's so precise too. It's so far beyond. They can tell people, oh, it's very precise. It's impressive, but they don't actually tell people just how precise it is. It's almost
Right.
it's
Right.
almost impossible. We could almost not do it now.
Right. I mean, we can't do it now because we have all of this quote unquote high technology. Okay,
Right.
what did those people have back then?
We couldn't do
and
it 50 years
did-
ago, though.
right. Did they do it with strings and sticks? I don't think so. They
No.
didn't line that stuff up with string and sticks, which is how we surveyed for the longest time. Was with
Just like they
sticks and,
didn't make those granite boxes with copper chisels and cut the President's Stone out with rocks and copper
right,
chisels.
right. There's no. They've had stonemasons go and look at those things, and they can't find any evidence that they were using any kind of tools at all that are recognizable by.
There's also those holes that are in several pieces, and we've even got the cores that were removed from them. And we can
Right,
measure
yeah.
what the rotation was of the drill that cut those, and it's far faster than what, I don't know, maybe now today we can, but 10 years, 20 years ago, it was far faster than anything we even had.
Well, I think that you were onto something when you were talking about high pressure water jets. I think that they were doing something like that. They were probably using water with some kind of frequency generators, and that's how they did it because their
I
work
think
was
they were
very
actually
precise.
using sound. I think they were using sound. Have you ever heard of the Coral Castle?
Yes, yes, yes.
Right.
Nobody
That
knows
guy,
how he did that.
right. And he did it all by himself, one man. He moved these he cut and moved these gigantic pieces of coral. That doorway that he made is, I don't know, X number of tons, and you can push it with a child can push it with one finger and it'll turn.
Yeah,
And
like how
yeah,
how did he do that? You know, these
he said he discovered the secret of how they move the pyramid stones.
yeah, yeah, and he instinctively knew that he wouldn't be able to go public with it because they would just ruin him or whatever. So he built what he wanted with it.
Yeah, and he
You
put
know?
up big things that would block the view from outside too, so nobody could see what he was doing. But the only thing that the people who were around at the time who were credible said that they took out of there was like this one single little box that was mounted on a big giant tripod, so that it would be set above whatever it was he was working with.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's really the only thing that they said that was in there that would have been anomalous. That might have been whatever machine that he used. But yeah, he was able to move these all by himself. The people that delivered those big coral blocks to him, they just couldn't believe it.
Yeah, yeah. You know, like they wouldn't believe it if they weren't looking at it.
Right.
And I don't believe it until I'm there and I can touch it. I mean, I know that's a thing and it's a thing that you can go and actually put your hands on, but I've never been there. So
Right.
I'll
I don't know
100%,
if
yeah,
these things exist.
yeah, I'll 100% believe it when I go there and I touch it. That's when I'll
Australia's
100% believe
total
it.
myth.
What's that?
I said Australia is just a total made up myth. I'm
You know,
just kidding.
I know it exists. I've touched it, so you know I know.
Yeah, I'm just
There
joking.
were there, you know, that man, that place is something else, man. You know, those people, the Aborigines, have been there for at least 50,000 years. At least 50,000 years, at least.
It's
And
funny
what?
how there and here too, the indigenous people, when they warned about some place, they knew what they were talking about. They had so much knowledge that we have ignored, thinking of them as savages or whatever. And that could be so valuable to us. And now we see, that rock there in Australia, Ayers Rock,
Yeah,
people vanish there, and there's no fucking place to go. There is
right.
no place. And so, but the indigenous people said, don't go there. The rocks will swallow you.
So what do the white people do? They flock there by the hundreds and the thousands.
Exactly.
You know,
Same thing in North America. We do that here too.
the one place that I actually went to and saw was the Gympie Pyramid. It's boulders stacked up in a pyramid. And it's I never measured it because I don't know how, but whatever. They say that it is aligned just like the Great Pyramids in Egypt. That it's
And
yeah,
there are
it's
more pyramids around in the world too. I mean,
oh yeah.
even the admitted ones, most people don't know there are multiple pyramids in the United States that are not even hidden. They're just
Oh
not
yeah,
talked about
yeah,
very much. But
yeah.
there are
Of course.
almost certainly a number of them that have been hidden, including the one in Alaska that a number of military whistleblowers have talked about. And then you've got also the Grand Canyon, where it seems to be the case that this is a true story about the guy that found the big Egyptian trove in the Grand Canyon, and it actually lines up perfectly with this one. And on the time with one guy from Egypt, he was part of the royal family, and he was ousted and sent off with a certain number of ships or whatever. So that it kind of lines up with that almost perfectly. Now it may or may not be that, but it certainly seems to be the case because the government has taken control of this area of the Grand Canyon for no reason. It's a no-fly zone. You can't hike in there. They'll shoot you on sight. I mean, why would that be?
Yeah, because it's part of the information that they want to control.
Right.
There are pyramids in Ohio.
Yeah.
There are pyramids all across the United States. They're all over the place, and several of them are Etruscan ruins. They've pretty much proven that Etruscans were also here on this continent, and that's
And the Chinese and the Vikings, like we were
and
talking
the
about earlier,
yeah, and the Egyptians
and the Irish,
the Phoenicians,
even
all
the
ki-
Irish. Yeah.
yeah, all kinds of different cultures came here.
Reading, there's
Uh,
a book I think I told you about. It's called Cod. I don't know if it was you I told about it, but it's called Cod, and it talks about the importance of cod. And basically, there's a letter in there, and it's from the head of this fishing company. Now, at the time of Christopher Columbus's day, at that time, it was cod was so important to the economies and the food supply of these European countries that in Britain, for example, it was treason to buy cod from a foreign seller, and you would be executed for it. So there was this
wow.
company.
Okay.
This company was brought up on charges multiple times because they're coming back with these giant loads of cod, and they wouldn't say where they were coming from. And people said, "Oh, you're buying them from the Dutch or whatever," and they brought them up on charges in court numerous times, but they could never prove it. Well, the son of the head of that company was good friends with Christopher Columbus, and there's a letter in there from him.
Uh-huh.
And it said, he's saying, "God damn it, I told you that in confidence, and you swore to me that you would never reveal that information of where our fishing beds were, and they were off the coast of New England." That's where they were. That's where they were getting all this cod, and that's where Christopher Columbus. That's one of the reasons he was so confident he wouldn't sail off the end of the world.
Yeah, because he knew about those fishing grounds. Man,
Mhm.
this just reinforces our conversation about these criminals. How these people that are elites are criminals.
And they've set the school system up to just instill us with these lies.
Well, yeah, of course, man. Of course. Man, what else was I wanting to tell you about? We kind of need to wrap this up. I'm starting to get hungry.
Yeah,
man.
we've actually run along. Well, I'm surprised we have anybody.
Yeah,
left.
it's been a blast, and it's been good to talk about, and we've captivated at least 3 people that aren't me and you. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, I don't know who's still here. I don't know if Kurt's still here or not. He made a really salient point there, man. Yeah, we live on a plane. Everything exists on a plane. And without a plane, there's no existence. There's no existence. None at all. All right, Jeff hates pigs. Good night, brother. You have a good one, man.
Hey, pigs.
Stay warm and be well. And last thoughts.
I don't really have anything. Frankly, I think we've done talked our mouths off here.
Yeah, we've definitely done that. My parting words would be: keep an open mind, but don't be gullible. Don't just
Good
believe
one.
it. Yeah,
Good
but just don't believe any fucking thing that comes along, but keep an open mind about
That's
certain
why you're the
things.
host and I'm just the guest, because that's
If it-
very right.
Yeah, exactly. If it comes from the mouth of somebody that can't stop saying what an expert they are, it's probably bullshit. It's probably a lie. Oh, I'm an expert. Well, guess what? If you're an expert, fuck off. I'm not going to listen to you. If you're a professor at Yale, fuck you. You're a tenured person at the National Science Institute or whatever. You're probably bought and sold and you're on a leash. You're leading us into disaster. My other last thought, and I want you to respond to this. The only thing that these antediluvian, ancient, prehistorical civilizations of antiquity really truly feared was catastrophe, natural disasters. What do you think about that?
I'm sure that was a big part of their world. They orally and in some cases with some type of symbolism, writing and whatnot, they passed down. I'm sure they didn't forget anything. Every time a volcano exploded or a flood happened,
Yeah.
they probably thought they
Yeah.
angered the gods, and they wanted to be very careful about that.
Yeah, maybe the next time we get together to talk about this nonsense, we can talk about Atlantis and Lemuria, because those two civilizations of antiquity just fascinate me to no end. But they were both destroyed in Cataclysm, man. Both of them.
Well, some people say there's still Lumerians living underneath Mount Shasta.
Well, that's neither here nor there. But the fact is that if they could find a sample of pure Atlantean or Lemurian DNA, they would probably find it in every single one of us as well.
Oh, no doubt, almost.
They
Well, we can also get into Admiral Byrd and what he claimed.
Oh yeah, that stuff is fascinating to me, man. Fascinating. All right, you guys, thanks for coming. Thanks for listening and hanging out with me there. What's the matter, you? Good conversation, dude. Stimulating stuff.
Thanks for having me.
Fascinating stuff. No problem. I mean, we're just going over things that other people have already been on about, but you know what? It's still good to have these kind of conversations, and maybe we find a different direction to think in about these things.
Exactly. Rather than just constantly watch these infuriating cop videos and talk about how infuriating it is.
Yeah, we all know that we're fed up. We understand that. But I think, that even just mental exploration back into antiquity is gonna shift things.
I see the value.
I see the value of it as well, because if we could go back there, we would meet people that are so completely different, and compared to us, they were whole human beings, where we are just pale shadows of humanity compared to those people, because
they lived.
They knew they had a purpose. They weren't just surviving and existing, they were living.
Yeah.
And they understood that dying was part of living, and that after we died, we had to be ready for that. And we prepared for that in our lives. Anyway, that's a conversation.
When you take that away, then nobody has any reason to act morally necessarily. I mean, if you have it instilled in you, then you will, but you don't have to worry about what's going to happen to you after death. That takes it away for a lot of people.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. There's this eternal ambivalence. Like, we're ambivalent. Oh, well, when you die, you're just dead. We don't know that.
I no longer believe that.
I don't believe it either, man, because what would be the point of this of all the people that have ever existed? Every single human being that's ever existed was and is unique and has a purpose on this earth, but we've shattered that.
That's another one that we should definitely get into on another time, is because I don't know if you've ever seen The Boy Who Lived Before or any of these other cases of reincarnation that are pretty compelling. But
I think I've watched that one. I have some personal
check into all that. Basically proof that that this is not.
Yeah, I've visited places that have triggered something in me. We'll talk about that some other time. But anyway, thanks for coming, man. I appreciate you, and I wish you all the best. I wish there was something that I could do to help you with your travails with that.
Me too.
that garbage that is coming out of you.
Yeah.
I wish there was some way that any of us could help you with that, man, because it's horrific. And that
Rami says he can, and I'm going to at least hear him out.
Well, man, look, at this, you've been practicing extreme measures to keep yourself alive, and that to me is the mark of a human being who is important.
I want to live. I always wanted to live forever,
Yep. Well, I mean, look,
maybe not live forever, but, try to extend my life to the fullest that it could be and live it up. And I did. For 32 years, I lived it up. I'm glad I did, too, because when that hit me, it took most everything. But, so anyways, we'll get into it another time.
Yep. All right, brother. Thank you for coming. I appreciate you. and I wish you all the best. And to all you guys that listen to the whole thing, let me know what you
thank
think.
guys.
Like, comment, and subscribe above all else. Thanks for coming, man. I appreciate you, and you have a good night, and we'll talk again soon.
It was worth it. Good night.
All right, later, man. Good night, guys. Doc, out.